Dear Venerable Brothers, Dhamma friends, we are going to start the third Dhamma sermon on this English medium retreat number 345. May you give your consent by saying Sadhu Sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Manyamano bhikkave baddho marassa amanyamano mutto papimato ti. Dear Venerable Brothers, Dhamma friends, we were discussing about thinking process and what are the different kinds of thoughts arising in our mind. And yesterday we discussed further into that. And today also we are going to discuss even some subtle aspects into this thinking process. Because we need to know how things are happening, how exactly our thought formations are happening. Then only we can actually appreciate the Buddha's teaching in a way. Then only we can even appreciate various meditation techniques, mindfulness related techniques. And that's why we are trying to recognize some subtle aspects of this thought formation. So before getting to some technical stuff, so let me tell you a story. So one time Buddha explaining to us monks that suppose monks, there are sheaf of barley, say a packet of barley, a sheaf of barley is put on a junction, and 6 people come from 6 different directions, and they all have some wooden flails, kind of a stick they are using, maybe with a flat top, so that they can strike thoroughly onto that barley, that sheaf of barley. So 6 strong people are coming from different directions, and they are, hammering, they are striking this whole sheaf of barley strongly, so that becomes completely almost like powdered. And then particularly further Buddha mentioned there is another 7th person, another strong person coming, and again he is also having such a flail, and using that also he is striking this sheaf of barley, and that become completely powdered. And after mentioning that, Buddha further mentioned, similarly monks, now typically the worldling can see various forms through his eyes. By seeing through the eye, he may get various kinds of feelings, various kinds of thoughts, and those may be into the agreeable side, maybe to the disagreeable side. So basically he become stricken by these different thoughts which have happened because of the eye contact. Actually, when we discussing Madhupindika Sutta, so this is how it was in detail explained. Chakkuncha paticca rupeja upajji chakkuviññānaṁ tinnaṁ saṅgati passo passapacca vedana yang vedeti taṁ sañjānati. So all this technical stuff we discuss. So how this thought formation happen when we see a particular form, a particular sight. So here also Buddha in brief mentioned, so whenever someone go through some experience through his eye faculty, so there are various thoughts appear in his mind, and those may be certain ones agreeable, or certain ones disagreeable. And on the other hand, he again hear various sounds through his ears. That also promotes thinking. Various thoughts arise in his mind. Certain thoughts may be agreeable, certain thoughts may be disagreeable. Certain thoughts maybe he like to think, and certain others become a nuisance to him. And on the other hand, there are odors which he can recognize through the nose. That also happens. And as a result of that, his mind get activated, start thinking. Various thoughts can happen as a result of these odors coming through the nose. Then through the tongue. So you can understand the odor now. Through the tongue also, various tastes now he can experience. So as a result of that, again his mind become activated, and he start thinking. Maybe agreeable, maybe disagreeable, and even the taste may be agreeable taste, disagreeable taste. Accordingly, he may go through pains, maybe pleasures, maybe equanimous feelings, and all that mental activity appear like agreeable or disagreeable. He may like it, he may don't like it, but anyway he is subjected to that. Similarly, he go through various tangibles through the body. He experience certain sensations, maybe touching, pressure, and all that causes some sort of an agitation, and he start thinking, and those may be agreeable, those may be disagreeable. And again, the whole bodily experience could be agreeable, disagreeable. And thoughts also coming to his mind, and that is also appearing in his mind, and it promotes further thinking, maybe worrying, maybe regretting, or maybe happy, pleasurable, elated. So either into both sides, either into the positive, elated, happy side, or into the negative, worrying, sorrowing side. So these are the 6 senses we are operating, each one of us are having, and we are using those 6 senses to communicate with the outside world constantly. As a result of that, mind get agitated, mind starts thinking, promoted thinking, and these are the 6 sense bases. And you can remember the first simile that Buddha has mentioned. A strong person coming with a kind of a flail, kind of a wooden stick, using that a sheaf of barley being stricken, again and again striked, so that it becomes almost like powdered. Now what is the 7th person? We don't have 7th sense, right? So now you can understand there are 6 people coming from 6 different directions, and they are striking the sheaf of barley. So they are, which is similar to 6 senses, and we, through the 6 senses, we are getting forms, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, and thoughts. Accordingly, we go through some sort of an experience. So what is the 7th? There Buddha mentioned, okay, this person, not only in the present moment that he go through these 6 senses, he even imagine about his future life. Am I going to have a future life? Am I going to become someone, or will I not have any future life? So he has certain kind of doubts, anxiety, uncertainty about his future life. Again, he promotes thinking, and that is the 7th person. So now, according to Buddha, now this whole process is a kind of a torture to the mind. So that's why he first give a kind of a simile about the sheep of barley. Now, after mentioning that, he gives another simile. That's a true story, seems to be an old story. Yesterday we discussed about God Sakka. Now, God Sakka one time was in a battle. So long time ago, he was with a battle with the Asuras, the Sura and the Asura. Sura, the side of the Sura is governed by the king God Sakka, who is the king for 2 celestial realms, Chatum Maharajika and the Tavatinsa. And then they are in battle with Asuras. And there the king is called Vepachitti. Now they have a kind of a wish. In case the Devas were defeated, so the Vepachitti gives an instruction to his fellows, telling, okay, you need to capture God Sakka, and after capturing, binding him to take it to our world. Now, similar instructions given by God Sakka also to his fellow celestial beings, telling we should win this battle, and you should bind Vepachitti, he is the king, and take him to our assembly hall. It is called Sudhamma. Now, who won the battle? So the Sura won the battle. That means the god Sakka won the battle. Now they are taking the opposite king, that is the Vepachitti, to their hall. It's called the Sudhamma. Sudhamma is their gathering hall, assembly hall. Now there's an interesting point how they are binding Vepachitti. So the forelimbs and the head the neck, being bound by a special kind of we can say a spell, or we can say a kind of a binding. And that speciality with that binding is it depends on his thought. Now, in case Vepachitti thinks these gods are righteous, but asuras are unrighteous, I better stay with the gods, going through all their luxuries, by entertaining all the luxuries available with the gods. Then what happened? And he being freed from all the bonds, and he appear like with the godly luxuries, and he become completely freed. Will he think like that, by the way? Now he is actually in battle with the celestial beings, with the gods. So it is completely unlikely that he would think like, say, gods are righteous and we asuras are unrighteous. It's very unlikely to think like that. So how he would think? He would think, okay, these gods are completely unrighteous. We asuras are righteous. I should escape from them and I should return back to my city. So when he think like that, what happened? So he being completely further captured, his that tightening then and this ropes or whatever the binding become further strengthened, further tortured, further tightening. So therefore, we can't see kind of a binding around his neck or the limbs, but it depends on how he think. So you can imagine the situation. Now Buddha mentioned, Evang sukumang ko bhikkave vepachitti bandhanang. So monks, this is so subtle is this the bondage of the vepachitti. Tato sukumatarang mara bandhanang. Monks, even more subtler is the mara's bondage. So who was bound by the mara? We all. So we all are going through such a very subtle bondage kept by the mara, which is extremely subtle, even subtler than the Vepachitti's bondage. And there Buddha gave a common statement telling, Manyamano bhikkave baddho marassa amanyamano mutto papimato. If someone is conceiving in any way, he is being bound by the mara. If someone is not conceiving at all, he is freed from the mara. Simple as that. So conceiving. The term conceiving basically refers kind of an imagining, kind of thinking. So in this Yavakalapi Sutta, the sheep of barley, name is given like that. So there Buddha explains how our thinking being promoted, our thinking being initiated due to various reasons. They are actually very subtle, in a way fairly psychological. The first scheme is called Manyana, called conceiving, imagining. So there is a tendency in our mind to imagine things. So things haven't happened, but we like to imagine about it. Say, still the election didn't happen, but we like to imagine who going to win. Or either the presidential election or the other one. The other election. Is this fellow going to win or that fellow going to win? So we like to imagine. So now the World Cup is going to come. So whether we going to win or someone else going to win. Today also we experience rain, or tomorrow also are we going to experience rain, or are we not going to experience rain? So we are having a kind of a tendency to imagine, to conceive. So it's a kind of inherent tendency we have. So that promotes thinking. So how are we thinking? So that also explained, giving some examples in this sutta. So 9 examples actually given, and very subtle way, I am is a conceiving. That means asmiti bhikkave manyita metang. I am is a conceiving. So that means whenever you feel, oh, I am. Even a very subtle I am is a conceiving. Ayang ahang asmiti manyita metang. I am this is a conceiving. Now say for example, you have a group photo or you have your wedding photo. So, and you have seen it. I am here, see. So you probably have your group photo, your batch photo or something, and you can look at where you are and you can see, here I am. You see, I am, how beautiful I am, how young I am. Even though I am old now, how young I am. So I am this. So you refer something maybe belong to you, refer something indicating something to you, and you immediately say, I am this. So that is a conceiving. So I is there now. So a kind of a ego comes out. So I is there, I am this. Then bhavissanti manyita metam. I am going to do something. Say in the future tense. Say you are imagining about something. Say in the future you are going to become someone. You are going to marry someone. Okay. So you are imagining about your wedding. So all are into the future tense. So you are imagining. You prefer to imagine how I am going to marry, I am going to be with him or be with her. You are going to build a house. So this is how, this and that. So all that you can imagine. So many things are there. So you need to understand in many different ways. I am just giving some clues. So whenever I am imagining about my future activities, so all that are conceiving, all that are imaginations, and all carries a certain tense of myself. I am, an ego is there. Na bhavissanti. I am not going to do it. I am not going to appear in this party. I am not going to participate in this party. I am not going to participate in this election. I hate elections. I am not going for the polling booth. So I am not going to. So na bhavissanti. Still you are there, you as a person, you are negating it. That's also conceiving. Rupi bhavissanti. Today I feel not beautiful. So probably the meditation helps me to become more beautiful. Someone else has mentioned that. My face become more beautiful as a result of the practice. So after some time of this practice, my face will be more beautiful. Rupi bhavissanti. Manyita metang. So you are imagining about your form, about your appearance, about your body. I am going to be healthy, I am going to be weak. I am going to have some kind of a change to my form, my body. Arupi bhavissanti manyita metang. I am fed up with this body. I want to attain something, immaterial world. I want to give up all this material realm. I want to have a immaterial, Brahma realm. Another future tense, imagination. Then sanyi bhavissanti manyita metang. And you want to have a certain kind of a perception. Assume that in the mundane level, say you want to have a degree. You want to have a change in your name. You want to earn some knowledge. Some kind of a perceptual change. Or else you are even going to some subtle level about some attainment, about some jhanic attainment, so some very subtle mental attainment. All sanyi bhavissanti, some sort of a percipient being. You become a kind of a percipient being, not right now, but you want to become something. All are imaginations. On the other hand, asanyi bhavissanti, neva sanyi, nasanyi bhavissanti, these are very subtle meditative absorptions. So anyway, so you are imagining. All this comes under the imaginations, conceiving. So Buddha in summary mentioned, Manyitam bhikkhave rogo, monks, all this conceiving is a disease. So you can see all our imaginations, Buddha see like a disease. Manyitang gando, conceiving is like a tumor. Manyitang sallang, conceiving is like a dart. So you can see how Buddha looks at our imaginations. So we like to imagine, we like to conceive, we like to daydream, fantasize. But Buddha look at it like a disease, kind of a mental disease. We all may share. Kind of a dart, again and again we are hitting the mind, the consciousness. And like a tumor that we all can suffer. So this is the conceiving part that first Buddha explained. Now this is the tendency we all have. We have the tendency to think, we have a tendency to imagine that all can promote a person, can promote a self, promote ego, various kinds of different propositions in thinking. Now, different propositions are there. Now, that's why we are coming up with languages. The grammar using different language. There are different, past tense, future tense, and different propositions are there so that you can clearly say, okay, I am going to this, I am going to that, in the future, in the past, all that. So that's why we have created a lot of grammar and languages so that we can explain, we can communicate, but all promotes thinking, by the way. So this is one side. And then Buddha mentioned about another possibility, how our thinking being promoted. Injitang. Injita is another area. Suppose that there is a piece of iron, and around that piece of iron, suppose that there are 6 magnets available. And what happened to the little piece of iron? It being attracted to maybe the strong magnet, right? Assume that it may be kind of electric magnets. So whenever we supply electricity, it becomes a magnet. That piece of iron may be attracted to that side. Assume it being released and then another magnet being activated, and again that piece of iron being attracted to that. So what happened to the piece of iron in a way? It's constantly in a kind of an agitation, constantly in a kind of a vibration, because attraction is there from 6 different directions. So what do you understand through that? So basically, we have certain amount of craving. We all have craving. So whenever we go through some sense experience, our craving can't keep the mind as it is. So craving promotes some kind of a thinking, because we are being attracted to what we see. We are being attracted to what we hear. We are being attracted to what we smell, taste, touch, and even what we think. So all these sense stimuli, when they are happened, internally we have some sort of potential of craving. As a result of that, we being attracted. So that attraction promotes thinking. So that is called injita. Where as a result of the craving, our mind starts thinking. That's another stream of proliferation actually. Tanha papancha. So the craving is one important area, how we being prompted to think, how we being tempted to think. As a result of craving, as a result of desire, we simply can't stay still. Mind starts agitated, mind starts trembling, because we being attracted. You can understand that now. Say, for example, while you are walking, say you see something beautiful. Say maybe a beautiful flower is there. And probably you're being attracted and you are thinking now, so who belongs that flower? Can I have that? Can I purchase it? Can I steal it? So probably you are thinking. Say you take another example. Say while assume that there's a young boy and he simply see a young girl. Probably he being attracted to what he saw, and now he start thinking. Naturally thinking started and he start thinking. Now the craving plays such kind of a role where I am is a type of injitang. Asmiti bhikkave injitametang. Now the same thing what we have explained about the manyita, now Buddha explained the same thing with injita. I am is an injita. I am is a agitation. I am this is an agitation. I am going to do this is an agitation. I am not going to do this is an agitation. I am going to become beautiful. I am going to change my body like this, that is an agitation. I am not going to become with a form. I want to become formless is an agitation. Sanyi, asanyi, neva sanyi, nasanyi, all that is as a result of an agitation. Now that is being driven by the craving. Now, first we discuss about the tendency to imagine, to think. As a result of that also we may be thinking. Further, we have a tendency of craving that also promotes thinking. So I am is a result of craving. I am is a result of this agitation. So eja is a Pali term rooted in craving, tanha. Now our mind completely being emotionally sort of appealed to what we experience. So it's a kind of emotional tendency we are carrying because our mind has certain amount of desire, craving. So now we are sort of tempted to think as a result of that agitation. That also Buddha mentioned, Injitam bhikkhave rogo. So this agitation, monks, is a disease. Injitang gando. This sort of agitation is a tumor. Injitang sallang. This is a dart. So you can see, so we being attracted to something, sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, and thoughts. As a result of that, we think, and Buddha says it's a disease, it's a tumor, it's a boil, it's a dart. Now, another area. Now, suppose I'll give a small funny example first. Now, there's a bus conductor. So, one day he want to get married. Now, he is taken to the registrar, to sign. Now the future wife is there and he is there. Now he want to sign the marriage certificate. Onto the marriage certificate there he want to sign. But this fellow can't sign it. Why? Because he used to sign anyway. I assume that he is using that whatever the bill, all that, the ticket book he is having every day. And whenever someone is getting in, he sign something and then he issue a ticket. Another one getting in and he quickly sign and issue a ticket. Now, unlike Singapore, in Sri Lanka, we have to sign. The conductor has to sign the ticket and tell, okay, from this to this place, okay, this fellow is taken the ticket and you issue a ticket. So while running the bus, you got the point, right? So he used to sign, he used to write while bus is running. Now, why the difficulty in front of the registrar? So the table is stable. Sorry, the table is stable. It's not moving. It's not shivering. It's not vibrating. So it's difficult to sign. Probably he have asked his wife to little move the table so that he can sign. So the point is, so whenever we are holding something, in case it is being trembled, it is being changed, so we also, subject to change. We also trembled. Now this is the pattern explained here, what is called the pandita. So whenever we are holding something, whenever we are attached to something, in case what we have attached, if that is being trembled, if that is being changed, if that is being shivering, then we are the kind of a dependent person. I am also subject to change. So what is about our mind? It's always attached with something, always holding something, always having an object of association. What happened to that object? That object constantly change. So whenever we are dependent on something, and if that dependent object is subject to change, subject to some sort of an impermanent behavior, so we being the dependee, I don't know, what's the term, the proper term? Dependent, right? Dependent. So we also are trembled, we also subject to a kind of a trembling. That is called the pandita. So basically the idea is, whenever mind associates something, as a result of any kind of a change happen to what is we associate, then the mind tends to kind of frightened, trembled. As a result of that, thinking happens. So this is restless nature of the mind. So that's another sutta actually Buddha explained, Nissitasya chalitang. Anissitassa chalitang natti. So Buddha mentioned Nissitassa chalitang. Whenever we associate something, there is a chalita. There is a kind of a vibration. There is a kind of a movement is there. Anissitassa chalitang natti. In case mind does not associate anything at all, then it is steady, still. So the opposite is here, where mind is constantly associating something, constantly dependent on something, and it is subject to change. So the mind tends to think. So it's a restless nature of the mind. So our minds are constantly restless because it associates something. It can't be completely freed. So it associates something, it is dependent on something, it is holding something, constantly thinking now, constantly agitation, constantly trembling, constantly palpitation. It's called this pandita, called palpitation. Some kind of a changing, moving, trembling is there. It promotes thinking. When you become restless, you start thinking. So restless mind is a thinking mind. Wandering mind is a thinking mind. Wandering mind is an unhappy mind. So similarly, Buddha explained this. Panditam bhikkhave, so ayang asmiti bhikkhave pandita metang. There are also this I am coming, okay? What's going to happen to me? Now say for example, you are being traveling by a vehicle. And it is also trembled. It's also maybe met with an accident. So you also now subject to an accident. You also break your leg, hand, whatever. So because you are dependent on that, you start thinking. You are frightened, trembling, and you start thinking. So this restless nature is another cause for us to think. So therefore Buddha mentioned here also, I am is a restless nature. I am is a pandita. Asmiti bhikkhave pandita metam. Ayang ahang asmiti pandita metam. Rupi bhavisanti pandita metam. Arupi bhavisanti pandita metam. So likewise, the whole previous prepositions again Buddha repeats with respect to this restless nature of the mind. So whenever mind is dependent on something, it can become restless. As a result of that, mind start thinking. Now that is the third area. Now we are getting to the fourth area that we already discussed to some extent. So our mind has the tendency to multiply things, diversify things, and kind of a prolific tendency. So we like to proliferate. So mind has that kind of a tendency to proliferate. It's not a directional, streamlined way of thinking, but to multiply, prolific, diversified kind of thinking. So that's the inherent nature of the mind. So I am is a papanchita metam. That means asmiti bhikkhave papanchita metam. So whenever I am happens, a sense of I happens, Buddha say it can happen because of this prolific tendency available in the mind. Papanchita, papancha. So even this subtle I am is a papancha. You can see we discuss about papancha with respect to Madhupintika Sutta. So there we thought, okay, papancha happens only at a large level, right? So first the eye contact happens and then the feeling happens, then we start recognizing and then we participate into the action. Now I think, now thinking being promoted, now we get into the proliferation. Now I am victim of the proliferation. Now Buddha takes it to the very subtle level and he says, Asmiti bhikkhave papanchita metam. I am ahang asmiti papanchita metam. Bhavissanti papanchita metam. Na bhavissanti papanchita metam. Rupi bhavissanti papanchita metam. That means even this subtle thought of I am is a papancha. I am this is a papancha. I am going to do like this is a papancha. So all that imaginations, all that thoughts, Buddha say, can happen as a result of this prolific tendency we all carry in the mind. And that also Buddha mentioned, papanchitam bhikkhave rogo. So this prolific tendency available in the mind is a disease. Papanchitang gando. Prolific tendency, this proliferation is a tumor. Papanchitang sallang. This prolific tendency is a dart. So you can see, we as human beings, we as all living beings, our minds are sort of inherently have these different diseases. Inherently, we all have these diseases. So, and these are tumors, and these are like darts. So when they are going further and further, we are being tortured, we are being tormented, and it may actually affect our body as well. That's why that psychosomatic diseases, right? The mentality has a great impact onto our body. So how we think actually has a great influence to our body health. So now Buddha talks about those very roots about our mental side. Papanchitang. Now another side is that we all like to measure, like to compare. So our minds have this tendency also. So whenever we are using a language, whenever we are, dealing with the outside world, we want to compare. This is good, this is bad. This is red, this is black. This is long, this is short. It's in a way very innocent, like, when there are two objects available, maybe some physical objects are available. So immediately we say, okay, this is long, this is short. This is heavy, this is light. A kind of a two-sided dualistic way of thinking. The same thing we apply to the persons. Okay, he is good, he is bad. I am good, you are bad. I am tall, you are short. I am fat, you are lean. So, kind of a comparison. So, this comparison, this measurement is another tendency we all carry. Another tendency, a very rooted tendency in the mind called mana, conceit. Asmiti bhikkhave managatametang. Now, as a result of this tendency, I am can come out. Ego can come out. When there is another person in front of you, the measurement immediately happens, comparison immediately happens, I am coming out. I comes out. I am better, you are bad. I am superior, you are inferior. Or I am inferior, you are superior. So the measurement quickly happens. Measuring process quickly happens. Comparison process quickly happens. It promotes thinking. Asmiti bhikkhave managatametang ayang ahang asmiti managatametang bhavissanti managatametang na bhavissanti managatametang rupi bhavissanti managatametang. All these previous prepositions now Buddha repeats with the conceit. Now conceit is another rooted, very fundamental disease we all have. So Buddha repeats, managatametam bhikkhave rogo. Amongst this, conceit is a disease. Managatametang gandu. This conceit, this comparison, this measuring tendency we all have is a tumor. Managatametang sallang. This measuring tendency, this conceit is a dart. Now you can see, these are the very fundamental characteristics and operative characteristics we all share. Our minds are kind of subjected to all these illnesses, different diseases. Now, let me come to another area. Now, probably you have heard about Buddha explaining our whole experience using 4 nutriments. 4 nutriments. Ahara, kabalinkara ahara, that is the audible food. Then passa ahara, the contact through our 6 senses. And then third, the mano sanchetana ahara, the intentions that we all carry. What is the last? Vijnana ahara, the consciousness. Now, Buddha asks us to understand consciousness, nutriment, in a very different way. Now, he is giving a very beautiful example there also. Another simile. He says, monks, assume that there is a bandit, there is a thief. And one day he being captured by the soldiers. Now, he is being taken in front of the king. And the soldiers are explaining, Majesty, the king, so this fellow is the thief, is a bandit, really a notorious guy, and we ultimately captured him. Now he is here, you do whatever the punishment you like. And now king says, okay, take him to a particular area, use a spear and strike him with the spear 100 times in the morning. So they did that. And after that, in the afternoon, they report to the king. His Majesty, so we did that, so that fellow, we being stricken by 100 spears. So the king is asking, is he still alive? Yes, His Majesty. Still alive. Okay, let's go and strike another 100 spears. So they strike him another 100 spears. Then they return back in the evening and again reports, we did that also, His Majesty. Is he still alive? Yes, he's still alive. Then you go and strike another 100 spears. Now after telling this simile, Buddha asked from the monks, what do you think? 100 spears striking to that fellow, is it kind of a suffering to him? What do you think? So then these monks are telling, Bhante, not 100 spears, just one spear strike would be extremely suffering. It's really a torture to him. Not just 100, just one. So how about then 100, then another 100 and another 100, 300. And Buddha say, the nutriment consciousness should be understood like this. So what are we doing? So the consciousness actually may prefer to stay quiet, right? Without any disturbance. Completely still, completely calm, relax. But what are we doing? We constantly strike. So we can understand why Buddha has given this kind of a simile rather than just telling one or something. So the 300, like, so actually the commentary explains it differently. Why Buddha has given that explanation, commentator give a different explanation. But I like to see here how the consciousness being activated in a way. Consciousness participates into some kind of an action. One fundamental action of the consciousness is to distinctly recognize. Cognition. When there are many people around, so you go and hook with something. Distinctly recognize, this is this. So this is a very fundamental action of the consciousness. Say for example, you are eating. And while eating, there are different tastes are available. Maybe the taste of bitter, then the sweet, and maybe plunge. What else? Maybe salty. So different tastes are there. So when all different tastes are there, the function of the consciousness is to distinctly recognize, okay, this is salty, this is pungent, this is bitter, this is sweet. Differently it can recognize. This is the basic fundamental function of the consciousness. So through the eyes we are constantly can see the eye consciousness happen. Through the ears we hear ear consciousness happen. Through the nose we can smell the nose consciousness happen. Through the tongue we can taste the tongue consciousness happen. Through the body we can sense the body consciousness happen. Through the mind we can cognize the mental or the mind consciousness happen. So the mind consciousness is responsible for the thinking as well. So all the other faculties actually promotes, triggers mind to think. In the morning also thinking, afternoon also thinking, night also thinking. Using different senses to trigger. Too much thinking in a way. So 300 strikes. So you can see the numbers also. So maybe one thought also may be enough for the consciousness to be, kind of go through some sort of a suffering. But we can't feel it. That fellow still not died after 300 spears. He used to this kind of a striking maybe. So we constantly like to think. Even though it's a torture, still we can't feel it. We like to think. That's why even yesterday we discussed how Venerable Sariputta explains Papancha maniyutto, yocha papancha maniyutto papanchabirato magu, viradayiso nibbanang yogakhemang anuttaram. He says, Yocha papancha maniyutto, papanchabirato mago. So this fool who is constantly engaged in thinking, engaged in proliferation, is utter fool. And he prefers that. He is addicted to that. Viradayeso nibbanang yogakkemang anuttarang. He go far away from nibbana. Never coming closer to nibbana. Instead, he go far away from nibbana. So whenever our mind comes to too much ignorance, it do lot of fabrications. It doesn't know how to be quiet. Avidya pacca sankhara, sankhara pacca viññānaṁ, viññāna pacca nama rupam. So here into this viññāna ahara, Buddha say, if one thoroughly, properly understood the nutriment consciousness, he thoroughly understand nama rupa, name and form. Because name and form and consciousness are interrelated. So it's a very subtle point we are trying to explain here. So whenever consciousness goes through any kind of a picture in front of it, any kind of a feeling in front of it, any kind of a thought in front of it, it can get engaged with it. So there are like prisons. The consciousness has 4 prisons like. One is the form aggregate. It's a one type of prison. Whenever we are attached to something physical, maybe our body, maybe something beautiful, some sound, maybe smell, taste, tangible, all the physical area, form aggregate, is something that consciousness go and attach with, stationed with, hooked with, bound with. So it's there now. It is growing there, established there. Now consciousness being imprisoned there. On the other hand, the feelings. So beautiful feelings, pleasurable feelings are there, painful feelings are there, equanimous feelings are there. So now it is being felt and you experience it. So that feelings are another field where the consciousness go and establish. Another prison. So the consciousness go and cultivate there, imprison there, establish there. The other area is the perceptions, various signs occupying the mind, completely filled with various signs. Mind is not empty, instead mind is completely, burdened with too much of mental images, various, signs of the sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles. So mind is filled with a lot of garbage. Now again the consciousness being imprisoned with that perceptions. Signs, another area. And how about thoughts, thinking? That's the 4th area. Whenever mind is too much thinking, whenever proliferation happen, imaginations happen, conceiving happen, there's another area where the consciousness go and establish, another prison. Now all that actually in subtle show the name and form. So name and form and consciousness are interrelated, and whenever consciousness is subjected to this kind of an experience, it go and establish, imprisoned. Now, how Buddha in a way advise us to behave? Let's take the first one, manjana, the conceiving. Amanyamanena bhikkhave viharissamati evaṁ hivo bhikkhave sikkitabbang. So Buddha mentioned, after explaining the conceiving part, imagination part, so Buddha asks us to restrain ourselves. Monks, you should try your best to avoid imaginations, avoid conceiving. Then he discusses about the injita, which happens because of the craving. So mind constantly subject to some sort of an agitation because of craving. It can't simply become still. The attractions happen every time. Attractions. So how are we going to stay then? Aninjamanena cetasa viharissamati evaṁ hivo bhikkhave sikkitabbang. Therefore Buddha mentioned, without agitation, I am trying to keep my mind quiet. This is how you need to restrain yourself. So in case I have an agitated mind, attracted to sound, sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, thoughts, it becomes agitated. Let's try to keep the mind unagitated. So this is how you should train yourself. This is how Buddha advised us. Apandamanena cetasa viharissamati evaଂ hivo bhikkhave sikkitabbang. So we discuss when we are attached to something, in case that being subjected to change, then we being trembled. But Buddha advice here, apandamanena cetasa viharissamati. So you should keep your mind without any kind of a palpitation. To do that, our mind has to be completely released. In case it associates something which is subject to change, which is subject to any kind of a uncertainty, which is subject to any kind of a impermanence, then we subject to change. We subject to tremble. Then we start thinking. Apandamanin cetasa viharissamati evaଂ hivo bhikkhave sikkitabbang. Monks, you should try yourself to keep your mind without any kind of a palpitation. So that in the other sense we can say without any kind of a dependency. Keep it completely independent. Nippapancaramena cetasa viharissamati evaଂ hivo bhikkhave sikkitabbang. So you should keep your mind without any proliferation. So proliferation is a tendency we all carry. We like it. We like to think in many different ways, go on and on, creating a lot of stories that should be stopped. Nippapancaramena cetasa viharissamati evaଂ hivo bhikkhave sikkitabbang. So Buddha advised us, telling monks, you should restrain yourself so that I am not preferring any proliferation. Instead, I am trying to keep my mind free from proliferation. Then the last one about the conceit. Nihatamanena cetasa viharissamati evaଂ hivo bhikkhave sikkitabbang. Monks, you should keep yourself free from judging, free from measuring, free from conceit. This is how you should restrain yourself. So we'll discuss further how this whole process we can going to implement through various techniques, how to calm down ourselves, how to relax ourselves, how to overcome these different tendencies in our mind, using various techniques explained by the Buddha into coming few days. And with that note, I'll conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Thank you very much for attentive listening.